and good afternoon, everyone. I'm Anusha and I'll be your host for today. Welcome to the virtual Malaysia Urban Forum 2020 networking event number 5, positioning Malaysia's city towards sustainable and smart initiative. With us today, we have our panelists, Madam Noor Akmal, Abdul Karim, Deputy Under Secretary Policy and Inspectorate Division, Ministry of Housing and Local Government. Dr. Haji Nazman Mustafa, President, Kulim Municipal Council. Mr. Kamarul Arif Okmar, Research Analyst, Malaysia Industry Government Group for High Technology, MIC. And Engineer Dr. Muhammad Fazil Muhammad Siam, Managing Director, TNB Research Tanjung Berhad. Without further ado, I would like to introduce our moderator, Dr. Liz Alexandra. She is our Senior Associate at MIT. Dr. Liz Alexandra has been named one of the world's top female futurists. She combines futures thinking with over 30 years communication expertise to produce publications that showcase the advice of fellow futurists on issues including the future of education and how business can benefit from working with futures communities. Now, with pleasure, I would like to invite Dr. Liz Alexander to begin our discussion today. Liz?
Thank you, Anusha, and the team at MIT who are supporting us with all the wonderful technology behind the scenes, and of course our hosts at Malaysia Urban Forum. I'm excited to be your moderator for this event as it's a topic that should be of huge importance to us all. In a moment, I'll begin by introducing our 4 esteemed panelists, followed by my own brief introduction to the topic. After I've done that, each panelist will be given a few minutes to describe their professional involvement in today's topic, after which I'll engage them with a series of questions that I hope will encourage more conversation than presentation, which I'm sure everyone is glad to hear. So that should take up approximately 45 minutes of our 1 hour together. Then I'll open the webinar to the floor for a 10-minute question and answer session. So please use this opportunity to post your questions in advance, and I'll try to get to them, as many of them as possible in the time. Finally, I'll sum up everything, and before we know it, a whole hour will have passed, hopefully in an informative and inspiring way. So please stay with us to the end if you can. So now, allow me to more fully introduce our panelists. First, Ms. Noor Akmal, Deputy Under Secretary of the Policy and Inspectorate Division in the Ministry of Housing and Local Government, who has been in public service for 20 years and held various positions in a number of different ministries and departments. As an Undersecretary in charge of Sustainable Development Indicators for local authorities, Noor Akmal is widely engaged in initiatives that implement the Sustainable Development Agenda nationally. Her master's degree in Human Resource Development is from the University Putra, Malaysia, and we're delighted that you could join us, Ms. Akmal. Next, we have Dr. Nazman, President of Kulim Municipal Council, who has served in many stages of government, federal, state, institutes of higher learning and statutory bodies. He is heavily involved in organizational capacity building programs, especially in the areas of organizational development, strategic management, and human resource development. He also has extensive experience in staff training and performance management. So welcome, President.
Thank you, Dr. Liz.
Our third panelist is Dr. Fazil, Managing Director of TNB Research and Executive Director of TNB Labs, who started his career with TNB as a researcher in the area of power quality, eventually becoming the head of the Smart Grid Research Group and head of Transmission Unit. He is also adjunct professor at University Tenaga Nasional, is a recipient of many awards, as well as a member of various committees and working groups in his field. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Liz.
And to round out our panel, we have one of my colleagues at MITE, Arif, who is research analyst for the Sustainable Development and Technology Division. Currently, Arif is involved in the project Sustainable City in Malaysia, excuse me, which falls under the Sustainable Cities Integrated Approach Pilot Program for the Global Environmental Facility Organization. His major expertise is on social well-being, focused on urban low-cost housing environments. Arif has had experience in town planning in Malaysia for the past 7 years and has even served as a town planner himself at both the private sector and local authority levels. So glad you're with us too, Arif. So these are our panelists whom you'll get to know a little bit more about shortly. But first, positioning Malaysia's cities towards sustainable and smart initiatives. What does that mean, and what are we here to talk about today? Although it's a fairly common term now, the concept of sustainable development first appeared in a 1987 report by the World Commission on Environment and Development entitled Our Common Future, that warned of the negative environmental consequences of environmental growth and globalization, and looked for possible solutions to the problems caused by industrialization and population growth. To simplify matters, experts talk of the 3 pillars of sustainability: society, economy, and environment. Or to put it in a way that's easier to remember, people, profit, and planet. Now that fits nicely with one definition of sustainability I came across, that sustainable development satisfies the needs of the present without compromising the capacity of future generations, guaranteeing that balance between economic growth, care for the environment, and social well-being. As a consequence of that vision, and to make it more of an achievable mission, the United Nations Conference in Rio de Janeiro in 2012 devised a set of Universal Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs, and it is goal number 11: make cities and human settlements inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable, that we are here to talk about today. What are the challenges? What are the benefits? How are these sustainable and smart initiatives being implemented across Malaysian cities today? But before we dive into those questions specifically, I'd like to invite the panelists, perhaps starting with Noor Akmal and going in the same order as before, to briefly describe their professional involvement with SDG 11 and their top goal for 2021 and beyond. And if you could keep your answers to 2 or 3 minutes, then we'll have more time to jump into the meat of the questions. So Noor Akmal, tell us about your professional involvement in this particular SDG.
Okay, thank you, Liz, for your information. Actually, my ministry, Housing and Local Government Ministry, has been appointed by EPU to be the lead agency for SDG 11. So actually, basically one of the unit under my purview has been responsible to be the coordinator for the SDG initiative for my ministry and all agencies under our purview. And actually, in my ministry, there's 4 main players for this SDG initiative. Right. Number one, my own division as the overall coordinator for SDG initiative. We have plan maker in terms of data collection and monitoring SDG progress. We also have TKP, or local government department, as the department that monitoring the SDG project. And last but not least is our Urbanice as the consultant or coordinator to guide the PBT on any reports about SDG. Okay, the top goal for the 2021 actually is we are in the midst of finalizing SDG indicators, meaning that trying to basically localizing the SDG 2030 indicators according to the PBPs on local authority needs.
Excellent, thank you very much. Dr. Nazman, what's going on in Kulim?
Yeah, thank you, Liz, and all the panelists. Thank you for having me in this session. And as we know that Kulim is one of the municipal council, and we are also to thank Ministry of Local Government and Housing for choosing us as one of the pilot projects for smart cities in Malaysia. Okay, Kulim is one of the cities that has been chosen by the ministry to become a pilot project. And actually, for Kulim, we have been, there is five key urban challenges that has been identified by the ministry for the Kulim Municipal Council to deal with. And what we are doing now is trying our best to accomplish all the tasks given to us. And basically, we are also have problem with some, the COVID, the pandemic, it also affects us, and we have to move on with this condition. And we are try our best to accomplish all the requirement that has been put into us by ministry. And one of the top goals for 2021 is to actually to enhance our digital infrastructure in Kulim. As Kulim also is a high-tech industry park. We have high-tech industry park, and we are also has been identified as one of the city that has to deal with the investment for high technology in Indonesia and as well as in Malaysia. So we also have our own planning for that. Then for 2021, our top goals is to enhance our digital infrastructure to welcome the high technology industry to come to Kulim.
Excellent. Thank you very much, President. Thank you. Dr. Fadzia, what's going on at TNB?
Hi, Dr. Liz, fellow panelists, ladies and gentlemen. Our perspective at TNB Research, of course, looking from the smart energy and sustainable energy development. And for example, at TNB Research, our research, R&D, and technology application looking from the whole perspective of energy generation, from the generation, the transmission, distribution, and finally come to the customer on the consumption. And we have done many tasks looking in terms of the smart city. For example, this year, together with MITE, we are looking into the technology demonstration in Malacca in terms of deployment of the technology as well as linking with the various parties, the municipalities, the customer, the domestic, retail, as well as industrial, in terms of the developing what is the perspective of smart city and then looking into sustainable energy development. And looking from TNB perspective, we have moved from what we term as penggerak kemajuan negara, which means that the develop the national perspective. But now we are saying that we want to go into better world and brighter lives, because we feel that it's not just generating electricity, but the key is how to make the world sustainable, especially in Malaysia. So that's briefly what we are doing at the moment.
That's wonderful. Thank you. Looking forward to learning more about that. So Arif, obviously MITE has been partnering with TNB Research on a number of initiatives. But what's going on with you with the SDG, and do you have a top goal for 2021? Oh, I think you're muted, Arif. You need to unmute yourself. There we go.
Hi, sorry. Thank you. Okay, basically here at MITE, we is formed to prospect for the visibility for Malaysia through the strategic exploitation of the technology, so that throughout the years, MITE has touched various development areas to raise the odds of success for Malaysia high-tech industry, creating a collaboration between the public and private sectors. In we can see that MITE have embarked on several sustainable city programs such as the Global Environmental Facilities GEF6, and the Malaysia Smart City Alliance. As we can see that, basically, this GEF6 program pilot of sustainable cities is aimed to bring about the opportunity for greatest efficiency, the synergy, and increase the return of investment in developing cities. So that this project under Global Environmental Facility Organization, namely as Sustainable Cities in Malaysia, under Sustainable City Integrated Approach pilot program for Malaysia, so that our GEF6 project has engaged Mike contractor to undertake the GEF6 project back in May 2017. This program has involved Malacca State as our pilot state project, and then the objective of this project are to promote an integrated approach of urban policy making and management that is guided by the evidence-based, multi-dimensional and broadly process, and also to build awareness and institutional capacity building that promote in the climate risk mitigation technology through the demonstration projects. So that the overall output for our project deliverable basically focus on the sustainable development, the national and state policy for the sustainable cities. We have our capacity building program, also awareness, and finally the smart grid demo project.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much. Well, Noor Akbar, as you had mentioned that localizing your indicators, the indicators of SDG 11 is a focus of yours. Let me ask you this, because the SDG 11 agenda is a very broad one. I mean, there's 10 targets, there's 15 indicators, everything ranging from ensuring adequate, safe and affordable housing to disaster risk reduction. So those are very multifaceted, ambitious initiatives. How are you actually tackling that in a practical way?
Actually, that is the biggest challenge for us at KPKT, to ensure that we cover everything in our localizing SDG initiative. So what we do right now is that we try to involve everybody we are establishing that as indicator, and the indicator actually is just in line with what the Dawson have done with the report in 2018. So our initiative for localizing this localizing this SDG involves first providing the direction to the PBTs or the local government on how they want to achieve their SDG. Try to transform all those 2030 agenda to more concentrate and efficient according to the needs of the PBTs or the local authority. Number two, the pipeline that we try to strengthen the capabilities and also the capacities. For example, the capacity of the data collection. We are trying to use, for example, for MuniNet, we try to update to the one that is the indicators in the SDG. With that one, we try to involve implementing the SDG programs or projects. For example, right now, we already have pilot project, SDG pilot project. It's about the urban farming project. The pilot project has launched this early September at Lembah Subang 2. And this project, we collaborate with a few agencies and NGOs. And the reason for that project, one of it is to ensure that that the is for the food security and also for the food on plate for the PPR citizen in that area. That is not the most important thing to localize this activity, that we have to engage with the stakeholders, like the central agencies like EPU, DOSM, and also we are in the midst of planning to do engagement session with the PDP. The first round for this session has been early last month, and we're trying to get more feedback from other PDP to make sure that our SDG indicators suit with the needs of the PDPs.
That's excellent. Well, that's why I want to ask you, Dr. Nadsman, the very same question, because obviously the needs of major cities like KL, Kuala Lumpur, or even Georgetown on Pulau Penang, where I live, are going to be different to Kulim and Al-Star. So how are you making sure that those targets and those indicators are being brought down to really localized needs in your metropolitan area?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Liz. As Puan Akmal had outlined just now, that the ministry has already have their own mechanism and their own strategy. How can we implement the SDGs 11, which is very broad, as you said just now, is covered almost all the structure of the community, all the activities in the municipality, and actually it covers almost all the what we call the needs of the people in the city. Okay. First, Kulim, as for Kulim, for now we are trying to understand what are the needs of the population in Kulim itself, because Kulim has about 308,000 population. It consists of from various strata of social strata in the Kulim, and most of the population are from the industrial community, and some are from the lower social strata of the what we call the social structure of the city. And it's quite challenging for us because it's not easy. How can we bridge all the needs that come from the high level of social status and go down to the lower social needs of the people? So these are very challenging. So from now we are trying to understand what are the needs of the population in Kulim. And secondly, we are trying to understand who are the local actors actually in Kulim. Then we can strategize what can we do, because we have to understand who are the local actors, from the formal local actors such as from the government agencies, and informal local actors such as from NGOs, business community, local leaders. Then we have to get them together, and we have to be able to understand their needs and how can we move to achieve the objective of SDGs. And besides that, we also have to understand the limitation of resources in Kulim. Yes, we have a very limited resource land area. We have limited resource in terms of economic activity. So we have to understand all these constraints, all these parameters. Then how can move from that understanding? How can we strategize and synergize all these elements to move forward in order to achieve the objective of SDGs?
Yes, yeah. You raised some really interesting points there, Dr. Nadsman, and a number of things I'd like to come back to shortly, because it's a major topic. We could spend hours on this. But in the meantime, Dr. Fadzil, I'd like to ask you this, because very often when we're having these kinds of conversations, we're always kind of talking in the abstract and the big picture. It's sometimes challenging to know what is happening, really drilling down. So I wonder if you could tell us, maybe talking about the program that you were talking about in Malacca or another one, what benefits can you report so far from your efforts concerning the development of sustainable smart cities in Malaysia? And I know that it's not necessarily to do with energy, but if you can, bring in things like transportation, which contributes heavily towards pollution and huge loss in productivity in certain cities. Can you drill down for us? What are some of the benefits that you were seeing from your efforts?
Okay, thank you, Dr. Liz. TME has started in Malacca more than 5 years ago, where we started off with a project called Advanced Metering Infrastructure. So this is something, in a way, in a simple word, is introduction of smart meter in Malacca. And the key reason, because with a smart meter, everyone can know their energy consumption. And one of the key things is to be smart and energy efficient. Now, the immediate benefit is that customer can be aware of what they are using. They can plan in terms of their energy consumption and be mindful in terms of indirectly what will be the CO2 emission, etc. So the customer, people like us, can understand what we are using and in a way, what is our contribution to the environment as a whole. And I think I like the point made by Dr. Razman just now. In order to ensure that the project is successful, the interaction, the awareness, acceptance by all the parties are very important. And I think similar to Dr. Razman, TMB started the project much earlier, where we engage with the local community, with the political leaders, in various municipalities, because the key thing, in order to ensure the success of this smart and sustainable energy, is that people can understand what finally they want to use it and the benefit that they can achieve. Because otherwise, they will see that, for example, if the MD comes and brings something new, they will say that this is benefit to the MD, for example.
Yes.
And linking to the smart transportation, for example, in Malacca at the moment, is with that advanced metering infrastructure, the ICT infrastructure will allow for various applications to be introduced. For example, under the current project with MITE in Malacca, we talk about the electric vehicles, that's number one. And then we talk about in terms of linking the various home automation, building energy management system together. And I think I'm delighted that the 4 facilities in Malacca, they are very supportive towards this application. The other one is that in terms of, when they talk about sustainable and smart energy, we need to look from the generation perspective as well.
Yes.
Now, specific example in Malacca, there are 2 large solar power plants, more than 50 megawatt. They are also part of this because we want to see the balance between the generation side coming from solar or RE, and then in terms of the energy utilization, and the other one is in terms of the awareness of the people. And that's where, for example, we introduce what we term as the IoT of electricity, the Internet of Things of the energy. So that's roughly what we are doing at the moment, and specifically in Malacca, please.
That's excellent, because I think it's really important when you're involved in innovation and research that people see that this is trickling down to their everyday lives. And that there are things, that we're working in partnership, and that we are able to take advantage of the innovations that are coming out of your work and your research group to all contribute towards a more sustainable life. Arif, let me ask you this, and I'm asking you this because of your background in town planning and your particular interest in low-cost housing environments. Because, Dr. Nadsman made this point about local actors and involving people, and it's something I always feel very strongly about. So to what extent in the projects that you're involved in, are you inviting and responding to the views of local residents as to what they want to see in terms of housing needs? Because I'm thinking in particular that here on Pulau Penang, oftentimes families are uprooted from kampungs that somebody higher up might consider to be slums, but of course they are nurturing communities that are often hard to replicate in modern housing developments. So how do you see the work in town planning and helping to change these these low-cost areas and not lose that sense of community by improving people's conditions? You're muted again, Arif. Arif, you need to unmute.
Okay, sorry. Something happens to the line here from me. So thank you, Dr. Liz, for the question. So basically, you are asking about what we do in terms of the low cost housing environment.
Yes, I'm really interested in this balance. You know, we're having to make sure that we're moving towards sustainability and bringing in all these innovations. But at the same time, very often that involves uprooting people's lives. So what kind of environments do you see in which, we're improving sustainable housing for people without losing that community spirit that comes from living in kampungs?
So okay, basically the first steps to achieve the development goal agenda under the SDG 11, which is focused on our making cities more sustainable. So first, the most important thing is to reducing the inequality, and then to change and promoting peaceful and inclusive society. This is the very part we need to understand first before we create the whole ecosystem of the whole environment for the local housing people. And then next, the second one is when we think about the local housing area, we need to position the policy framework that promote the sustainable development goal, especially the number 11 agenda, by strengthening our public institutions so that we can have our environment more sustained with people, and then we can attract people to communicate among them. It is important also to promote inclusive and sustainable economic growth and social development. Two important things when I see that the local housing is about their economic and their social interaction.
Excellent, thank you very much. Noor Akmal, I wonder, we heard Dr. Nadsman talk earlier about the limitation of local resources. Obviously, for the Kulim municipality, he's going to have to make do with the resources that he has. You know, I'm wondering, as you're working your way through these various targets and initiatives for SDG 11 on a national basis, are you finding this relevance to local needs a challenge, or is there a bigger challenge that you are experiencing right now, and how are you working to overcome them?
Okay, actually, that's why we're trying to establish this SDG indicators, because through these SDG indicators we try to find the gaps and try to overcome the gaps. And actually some of the problem is actually the problem repetitive happen, and that's why we're trying to make a few models to ensure that we can find the best solution for PBTs, because right now PBTs and in Malaysia has different characteristics and they have their own uniqueness. So that's why one of the plans in KPKP is that we try to do a few models to 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 be the best solution for the problem at the PBT level. For example, if it's about traffic, we try to about the landscape, we try to find a few models and we will present the models to the PBT for them to select which one that can suit with the capacity capabilities, including their budget. That's why we're trying.
That's great. Thank you. So, Dr. Ladsman, let me come back to something you were talking about earlier, about being a pilot project for smart cities, which makes a lot of sense because obviously you're one of the smaller cities in Malaysia. So if we're going to do a pilot project, it's better to do it small and contained, and then work up to KL and all the bigger cities. I'm just wondering about what's this? Paint us a picture for what being a smart city is going to look like for the residents of Kulim. If I come and move to Kulim from Pulau Penang, how am I going to see the benefits of your efforts with regards to smart cities?
Thank you, Dr. Liz. Of course, when we are talking about smart cities, actually, most of the people are thinking about having smart lifestyle. And for now, people are talking about to get, better internet speed, for example. So that is why we are trying to have some collaboration with MCMC to provide a good digital infrastructure in Kulim. I believe that when people talk about smart cities, and at the same time we cannot provide a good digital infrastructure to the population, it's not smart at all, especially for the population. And we are also having an opportunity to explore more enhanced digital infrastructure for the high-tech industrial activities in Kulim, because we are now have more opportunity to attract high-tech industry to come to Kulim. But at the same time, we still have limitation in terms of digital infrastructure. For example, 2-3 weeks ago, I have some discussion with MCMC. How can we enhance our internet speed? As for now, just 33 or 32% of the population enjoy the 4G facilities, and the rest of the area still enjoy the lower speed of internet, 3Gs, for example. So with that capacity, I think that we have to more go further to enhance the digital infrastructure. Then if we can achieve that target, I believe that people will also believe that this is smart city. Otherwise, I don't think that people will believe on us. You are talking about smart cities, but we are not enjoying all the smart lifestyle in Kulim. And other than that, we are also have to provide facilities which is equivalent to the smart lifestyle, especially in terms of cashless, for example, smart parking, which is not easy for us because it needs a lot of investment, which we are not able to do that at this moment because of the financial constraint. And there are a lot of constraints that we have to face right now. Then these are the things that when we are talking about smart cities, actually the people or the population have their own perspective on what city is all about, what smart city is all about. So we have to achieve to that level, which is not easy for us. Then we really need help from the central government to provide all the facilities, not only to not to be chosen as as a good boy, but at the same time we also need helps from the the central government to provide all the what we call the element or the instrument to become a smart cities. Thank you, Liz.
Dr. Liz, can I also respond to that question?
Yes, please. Actually, just before you do so, we've got about 10 minutes before we come to participant questions. So please, if you have a question for our panelists, please send them along. We'd love to be able to spend that time asking your questions. Thank you. Yes, Dr. Fadzil.
Yeah, Dr. Liz, I think it's a very valid question. How do we paint the picture of a smart city? So what we have done within TMB and TMB Research, we created this concept of smart university because based on the campus that we have here, TMB Research Unit 10 and ISAS, the training center, we developed various applications of what constitute the smart city, and we call it smart university. The idea is that the public can come here and see the various applications, including transportation. We have electric buses here, and it's also a training ground for the future generation, for the students, so that they can quickly understand the concept behind that and see ways how it can be part and integrated within their own living in the future. That's briefly my feedback, Dr. Liz.
Myself, Noor Akbar, while Dr. Nazman was talking, I saw you nodding. Don't wish to put you on the spot there, but he makes some very valid points, as obviously regionally or locally, there is a limit to what can be done. What's your perspective on the resources and the support that nationally can be given to cities that are working towards their own SDGs? Oh, need you to unmute. Can you unmute? Oh, that's great. Thank you.
Okay. As the lead agencies for Smart City Framework and SDG 11 given by the EPU, KPKT is ever ready to assist and consult all the state government and local authority over the smart initiative and also in the localizing the SDG initiative. For example, Plan Malaysia, they already established many planning guidelines, such as planning guideline for sustainable density development, planning guideline for transit development to be adopted and also implemented by the state or government or also the local authority. And at the same time, KPKT already prepared a suitable and also necessary platform for local government and also for state to mainstream the SDG and also smart city initiative at the planning and also at the development stages. For example, right now, there's already a structured system for KPKT to help the state and local government to easily implementing all those for smart initiative. And for the SDG localization of the SDG in the pipeline, and maybe in next year it will start to roll out the plan for the localizing the SDG initiative for the SDG indicator for KPKT that involve reducibility especially.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much. So, Dr. Fadzil, let me come back to you in these last few minutes before we jump into the question and answer session. How do you see the use of energy efficiency programs such as Smart Grid contributing to the overall aim of developing sustainable cities?
Okay, thank you, Liz. I think there are two things here. Energy efficiency and also combined with renewable energy, it is a necessity as well as opportunity. Necessity number one is that in terms of looking at the generation profile, we should have more renewable energy, and that's why I think TMB put a target that by 2035 we'll be having more of renewable energy coming in. And opportunity in terms of energy efficiency, it is a resource that actually, if we can optimize it correctly, then we can reduce in terms of the CO2 emission, for example, the greenhouse gas emission coming from the generation, coming from energy generation. But the key thing here is that education, training, awareness are very important. because otherwise people like me, for example, we take things for granted. Switch it on, switch the aircon on, it's hot, switch on, and then sometimes forgot to switch off, etc. And that's why with smart meter in Malacca, and slowly it's now being rolled out to Selangor and rest of the country in a few years' time. People, number one, they need to be aware of what they are doing so that they can optimize and use energy efficiently. And that's only we can move into the second step in terms of having smart appliances with a very energy efficient, for example. This can be done hand in hand. So, as I mentioned just now, two things is very important. It is a necessity plus opportunity as well.
Excellent, thank you. Noor Akmal, I'm going to come back to you. I have a question here. We're going to move into the question and answer session now, because this seems to be right up your street regarding human resources development. It's from Alan. He would like us to discuss briefly the smart city concept needs to focus on human resources, such as in attracting and keeping talents and developing growing capacity and capabilities. What's your thoughts on that? You need to unmute again.
Okay. The question. Okay, sorry.
Oh, sorry. The question. Yes, I'll give it to you again. Again, it's from Alan.
Question. But simple concept need to focus on human resource.
Yes.
I think keeping talents and developing growing capacity. Okay.
That's the one.
Okay. For the local authority, actually in KPKT we have institution called IKPKT. Then at the institution we already have a good collaboration partnership with MIC that train the local authority personnel on how to keep their capabilities in carrying their job, everyday job. Actually, there's IKPKT, which is training to the local authorities personnel. So in terms of personnel at local authority, they can go for their courses at the IKPKT, one of the institutions under KPKT. And also we have a program that has collaboration with the MIC to strengthen the capabilities of the... Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
To strengthen the capabilities of the human capital in the PBTs.
Thank you, thank you. Here's a question for you, Dr. Nadsman. It's from Maslam. Which is the priority for Kulim Municipal? Saving cost or creating new streams to municipal council or better quality of life to citizens? Again, you'll need to unmute.
Yeah, this is a very difficult question for me because all of these are important for me. In order to deliver good services to the population, we need money and we need to increase our revenue. But at the same time, we also have what we call the social obligation to the people. For example, right now we are having a pandemic. And it's not easy for us to handle this because there are a lot of people affected by the pandemic, which not affect their business, affect their income, and so on. But at the same time, we are also have a responsibility to enhance our revenue, to increase our revenue. Without that, we cannot accomplish our mission to deliver services to the people. If you are talking about what are the priorities, and I believe that the most important thing is to serve the people, because that is the objective of having this kind of organization. And we have to ensure that the urban infrastructure is good. Drainage system is good, transportation system is good, and also road system is good. But in order to have this good infrastructure, we need it costs us a lot, and we need to be able to increase our revenue. And these are the what we call the it's not a problem actually. It's a challenge for us. How can we deliver good service to the people, and at the same time to help them to face with the economical problem they are having right now. So these are the things. This is very challenging for us. For example, there are a lot of petty traders, along the road. So this is illegal. But if we enforce this kind of activities, it will affect them because they are doing this to their survival, to feed their family. At the same time, this is illegal activities. If we enforce them harshly, then it will affect their life. So these are the things.
That's wonderful.
That's why, in order to balance this, this condition, this situation, that needs a lot of thinking and needs from other parties, especially from the ministry. Once again, they are our parents, so they actually rely on them, especially in terms of allocation and help, technical help, and so on. That's all, Dr.
Thank you very much. Let me see if I can slip in another 2 questions before we move forward. Michelle Wu has a question for Noor Akmal. Is it possible to share the standardized and SDG process for better deployment of smart initiatives for national collaboration agencies? And again, you'll need unmute.
Okay, thank you, Liz. Actually, that's what we are trying to do with localizing our SDG indicator. That is why we're trying to localize the SDG indicator. One of the reasons is to standardize and to ensure that the process, that everything that will suit with the local needs.
Excellent, thank you. I think this is more of a comment than a question here. Let me see if I can get this in from Kana. There is a concern that the smart cities discussion is mostly, if not all, led by the telecommunication and tech players. In most cases, these organizations do not incorporate people with an urban background into their in-house product solution teams. For sustainability, it needs to be led by town and urban planners, complemented by tech as one of the many tools, but not the only one. We'll be kidding ourselves if we think that technology is the panacea for all humankind's problems, as it might have an alter ego. For example, the energy efficient electric cars are powered by carbon burning power stations. Or how might the demand for cobalt, nickel, rare earth, etc., might encourage unsustainable mining activities? Dr. Fadzil, I'm wondering if you would like to quickly comment on that point.
Yeah, thank you, Liz, and also thank you, Kana, for the question. And I think that is correct, actually. That's why in our case, TMB, in Malacca, for example, we do a lot of engagement because finally, we talk about the people. Technology is not an issue. I mean, from research point of view, technically it can be addressed whatever way and means, but the acceptance of the public and the understanding of it actually to ensure that whatever being introduced can be utilized properly. And the other one is I would like to touch is the importance of having proper coordination, because I think even in smart city there are many players. And the other one in terms of act and regulation, because that will help to ensure speed up things and ensure, for example, if like Nur Amma mentioned, if we have a proper guideline, etc., not just Malacca, not just Kulim, but other cities can straight away come in and be partner of it. So I think the importance of the understanding and cooperation between various parties, technology can come anyway, no problem. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to slip in one of my own questions here, because I know it was something that you mentioned, Dr. Nadsman, earlier, and it's kind of like the elephant in the room that we have ignored up to now, and that is COVID-19. You know, I'm just wondering how COVID-19 generally is going to impact these efforts, because I'm thinking particularly as a futurist. You know, that the pandemic may very well affect projections about megacities and the assumption that by 2050, 2/3 of people will be living in urban areas. Because I think, as we've discovered with the pandemic, you know, some of these megacities currently are what's been called hotbeds of infection, or even worse. So does any of you have a particular view on that, as to whether maybe the future is going to be a little bit less urbanized than we had projected because of what we're learning from COVID-19? Anybody want to take that one?
Okay, maybe I will respond to the question about the post-COVID-19 for the future city planning.
Yes.
So that we can see that COVID-19 future city planning is that now the city planning will turn upside down and change after the COVID-19 impact the whole nation, especially as now it needs to be planned to meet the diverse demand that look nothing like the present. So an appropriate planning requires the design and advancing the system with the parameters and clear offering. I give you, for example, that the lack of health infrastructure nowadays has led to the chaotic and costly race to close the facility at the first place. So that other countries already has constantly built the hub in the centers and south of the country, whereby the health infrastructure is weak. So to align that with the post-19 cities planning, the planners must build urban space with a single function, as it should be useful in emergency or like this pandemic. The impossible must be part of the doctrine in urban design practice from now on, so that my response is the post-COVID-19 methodology for the urban design should incorporative data produced via the digital infrastructure, and also the requirement of what we call now the Internet of Things, the IoT system. That we see that nowadays people have changed their normal in their urban lifestyle back to they are basically, we need to connect people with the internet, and then we also, I give you example, we still not the we give we what order food through internet, so that this thing, how to position this sustainable position the SDG 11 with the smart initiative is by requires digitalizing the infrastructure development, especially after the pandemic, as the city should focus on offering a healthier, resilient and agile living environment for the citizens.
Excellent, Arif, thank you. Well, we've only got about a minute and a half left, so let me see if I can just quickly summarize. But I would really love to thank all of you, Noor Akmal, Dr. Nadsman, Arif, Dr. Fadzil. We could have talked all day on this hugely complex and demanding topic. But I think what I have taken away from this is not only the complexity of what each of you is having to do, whether it is on a national level or a local municipal level, but how much we're all focusing on, or you are certainly focusing on, making this very practical and very relevant to real people's lives. For example, the concept of smart meters that Dr. Fadzil mentioned to us, that it's not just a question of TNB going away and doing, abstract research, that we're able to actually focus on this in a way that is applicable in Dr. Nadsman's area, so that individuals know specifically what energy consumption that they are using themselves in order that we all work together towards this wonderful goal. I think also another thing that I took away is the importance of involving so many stakeholders in this conversation, where Dr. Fadzil was mentioning Smart University. So not only are we involving students so that they can see how they can contribute to the future, but also opening it up to the public so that they are more aware of the efforts that are being undertaken on their behalf. So it's wonderful that Kulim and places like Malacca are being earmarked as pilot projects. And I certainly hope it won't be very long before we all come back together again to celebrate those achievements and hear more of what has been done in this year and beyond. So Noor Akbar, Dr. Nadsman, Dr. Fadzil, Arif, thank you so much. Thank you, Anusha, and your team for helping us at the back end, if you like, making sure that everything went smoothly, and also to Malaysia Urban Forum for being our gracious hosts for this event. Thank you.
Thank you, Liz, and thank you all our panelists for your time and your effort. I hope today's session have benefit everybody, and have a good day ahead. Thank you so much for joining. Bye.
Okay.
Dia banyak interest dia daripada Penang.
Okay.
Banyak example juga.